Hello. Here I am on my 71st birthday. About to begin my 72nd year. Uh, I've lived through 71 now, dodged an awful lot of bullets. Hopefully, I'll continue to dodge them. Um, Thanks to everybody who sent me birthday wishes and who sent me them by WhatsApp or by Facebook or cards or rang me up or whatever. And thanks very much to friends in Australia. Dave Brennan, thank you for contributing to the fundraiser for the Peter McVerry Trust. Peter McVerry does a lot of good in this country, and he's one of the good guys. Um, this cocooning business, it's tough. It's tough. But I know an awful lot of people have it worse than I have. I'm lucky. I've got a very good sister who helps me out with shopping, and I've got great friends, one in Cork, Ray, and my two best friends, of course, in Australia, John and Rhonda, and they keep in touch all the time. So, I'm not badly off, but it is tough, and I was just thinking of Oscar Wilde's line about the tragedy of growing old is that one is still young. I thought about him again today when I was out doing my allowed exercise out in the car park there. And the Ballad of Reading Jail, where he was writing about the prisoners tramping around the yard doing their exercise. And he said, I never saw a man who looked with such a wistful eye upon that little tent of blue we prisoners call the sky. Mm. Yeah, it's getting a bit like that. Anyhow, we'll survive. Today's little piece, look, anybody who has a problem with religious practices or who thinks of God as, the imaginary friend or what the ghost in the sky, this is not for you. I'm going to try and lighten it up today because I've been doing some very serious stuff recently. This is an Irish piece, a bit lighter, although the preamble, when I talk about a funeral, you'll probably say, this guy has strange ideas about what's light and what's not light. However, my uncle was, I'm sorry, I've got a frog. He was a Catholic priest and he was stationed in Tucson in Arizona. He was there since 1947. And he'd come home every 5 years, come home to Ireland. And I was his only nephew, so there was kind of a bond between us. He was a very straight-laced man, very traditionalist, could be very severe. I don't think he ever heard of Vatican II. But he was also a very well-read man. He spoke 7 languages fluently. He read so many books that he could read in different languages. And he influenced me an awful lot, not in terms of religion, but, in the social graces. I mean, I can remember as a child reading Shakespeare to him. He had me doing it. It was Shylock's speech from The Merchant of Venice, if you prick me, do I not bleed? So some friends in Australia will get that reference and know why that play meant so much to me. He also liked to sing. And I remember him having the sheet music that he bought in Walton's and teaching me The Croppy Boy, good men and true in this house who dwell, to a stranger book, I pray you tell. Another favourite song was Kevin Barry. And here's the thing I didn't know until the funeral was that I always thought, you see, his real name was Jerry Bond again. But he took Kevin in religion. And I always thought it was after St. Kevin of Glendalough. But I discovered, the Bishop of Tucson told me this, that he took that after Kevin Barry, who was a youngster of 18 who was hanged by the British during the War of Independence. And a very famous song about him, recorded by Paul Robeson, indeed. So this was the kind of man he was. I went everywhere with him as a kid. As I grew older, I travelled all over Europe with him. And then, of course, we grew apart, as you do. And I was away for 7 years in Australia, so we kind of lost contact. But we took it up again. And I met him quite a few times here. And then I used to, when he stopped coming to Ireland, I'd phone him regularly. I often phoned him about projects that I was working on. I remember making a documentary about the devil. And I rang him to get his insights, and he said, look around you, he's everywhere in Dublin. So We kind of lost contact during the last 2 years of his life because he was in a nursing home and he was very, very confused. And if I'd ring him, he wasn't quite sure who I was. But the priests had my details and they notified me when he died. So I went to Tucson for the funeral to do the eulogy. And I was there a day or so before the actual funeral, and I got to meet a lot of the parishioners. And I was amazed at the outpouring of love and affection for this man. And affection wasn't a word that I would really associate with him. But yeah, they loved him. And I remember these old men who'd been his altar boys talking to me and telling me about how good he'd been to their families and how he'd helped them and how he'd got them out of scrapes even. If some of them got in trouble with the law, he'd always appear in court giving them character references, all that sort of thing. Uh, so it occurred to me, like, what am I going to tell these people? They know him better than I do. So what am I going to tell them about him that they don't know? I'd written some stuff on the plane on the way over. And but then I think it's probably the Holy Spirit. It suddenly, I remembered that he had been taught in Dublin by a man called John D. Sheridan. Now, for my non-Irish friends, John D. Sheridan was, apart from being a teacher, he was a well-known writer. He wrote humorous essays, humorous verse, short stories, and he also, I think he wrote a novel. But through the years, they'd become very good friends, and my uncle used to go and visit him every time he was in Dublin. There was a particular piece that Sheridan wrote that he really loved. And I remember, years ago, he asked me to fax him the words of this piece. Fax, do you remember fax? And because he wanted to read it at somebody's funeral. So I did. So I thought, okay, here's where you're going. You're going to do this piece. And I was able to do it from memory, which was even more surprising. So I just put together a few remarks as a preamble, led into it. Now, what worried me about it was that it's very much in a Dublin idiom. And a lot of the congregation were Mexicans or Native Americans. So I'm wondering, are they going to get this at all? But to my great delight, they did get it. They even applauded at the end. And a few of them asked me could I give them, how could they get the words of it and that. So that's the story. Here's the piece. Joe's no saint, and I ought to know, because I work on a bench alongside Joe. He loses his temper just like another. His days he bite the nose off his mother. And when I call for a pint of plain, well, Joe's not slow at the same again. He gives the odd bob to the poor and needy, but you wouldn't call him gospel greedy, you know what I mean? So if there's inquiries after he's dead, I won't swear to no halo around his head, because I never seen none. When all's said and done, I don't suppose they give halos out to fellas that like their bottle of stout. All the same, though, I'm glad that I work alongside Joe. Because in the morning time, I lie on long after Guinness's whistle is gone and scarcely have time for a cup of tea. As for prayers, well, between you and me, that the prayers I say is no great load. Hail Mary, maybe, on the Cunningham Road. You know how it is. The horn blows on the stroke of 8, and them that's not in time is late. You mightn't get a bus for ages, but if you clock late, they dock your wages. Joe, though, he's never late at all, though he lives at the far end of Upper Whitehall. And I happen to know, because the wife's cousin lives in the very same row, that he sets his alarm for 6:30, shaves, goes through the whole bag of tricks, just like a Sunday. He gets 7 o'clock mass in Gaeltacht Park and catches the 7:30 bus in the dark. Now, in ways, too, he's not as well off as me, because he can't get back home for a cup of tea. He just slips a flask in his overcoat pocket and swallows it down while he fills in his docket. I do see him there munching his bread and cheese while I'm getting into me dungarees. So, there's nothing really about him then to mark him off from the rest of men. At least there's nothing that I could see. But there must be something that's hid from me, because it isn't every 8 o'clock man can say that he goes to the altar every day. So maybe now you know why I'm glad I work alongside Joe. Because though I'm a confraternity man and I struggle along as best I can, I don't have much time for chapel or praying. And some of the prayers that Joe just be saying those dark mornings, well, they must come my way. Because if Joe says prayer's enough for three, well, who is more right to a tilly than me? When my time comes and they lay me out, I won't have much praying to boast about. I don't do much harm, but I don't do much good. Me beads have an easier time than they should. So when St. Peter rattles his keys and asks, "What's your record, if you please?" I'll answer, when I was down below, I worked on a bench alongside Joe. Oh, Joe's no saint with a haloed ring, but I often think he's the next best thing. And the bus he catches at 7:30 is bound for O'Connell Bridge and heaven. You know what I mean? That one's for you, Father Kevin. Have a word with the boss and see if you can sort out this damned virus and get it gone. Final words to say goodbye. Julian of Norwich again, great mystic, medieval mystic, and she said, "All shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well." So stay safe, stay well, stay healthy. Thanks for everything. Bye-bye. God bless.